For this problem, we're trying to find out which information is not sufficient to prove that a parallelogram is a square. So let's go ahead and go through the four options and try to work this out. The first one states that the diagonals are both congruent and perpendicular. So I'm going to start by drawing a square. This is our first one. And if we have diagonals that are both congruent, so those are the same length, and they form a perpendicular line, that definitely is the definition, or one way of proving that something is a square. So that's not going to be good. Option number 2 says that the diagonals are congruent. So a similar situation. So those are the same length. And one pair of adjacent sides are congruent. So this is the same length as this. Well, if the two diagonals are the same length and these two adjacent sides are the same length, it must be a square. So that's not what we're looking for. So let's try the third choice here. The diagonals are perpendicular. Okay, so if I draw this out, the diagonals are perpendicular, so they're forming that 90-degree angle. And one pair of adjacent sides are congruent. So that means these two sides are the same length. Now, this is actually where we're going to run into an issue, because it is possible, use a little highlighter here, that these two lines are not necessarily the same length as those other two. So we may not be dealing with a square here. And if I draw this out for you, an example of how we can make this point in option number 3 valid and it not being a square, hopefully visualizing that will kind of help you see. So on the right-hand side of the screen here, you can see I've started by drawing two adjacent sides that are congruent. They're going to be the same length. The next thing I'm going to do is draw my diagonals. I'm going to do one here so that when I connect these two, we now have two perpendicular lines. I know it's not perfect, but you get the idea. We have our perpendicular line here, but you'll notice what I did. I turned it into a shape that is definitely not a square, right? If we finish this off, it's going to look a little bit more like a kite, actually. So yeah, a kite actually is a prime example of this. We have the diagonals of the shape being perpendicular to each other, and one pair of the adjacent sides are congruent, but clearly we are not dealing with a square. So option number 3 is the answer we were looking for. That's all for this video, and thanks for visiting JD's Preparation.